There's a book I want to talk about today that really helped change my life, really made me a better manifester, and I want to share some experiences on how I implemented these principles. The book is here. It's called The Magic Power of Self-Image Psychology by Maxwell Maltz. And he's a plastic surgeon who would perform plastic surgery to people that like really needed it, like if an accident happened or something like this. And he got really curious when someone had a really beautiful, objectively beautiful transformation, and when they saw themselves, they were like, no, I'm still ugly. That they still viewed themselves the same, even though they drastically changed. And he expands on that. Not that we're getting plastic surgery, but just on self-image. And there's this line that you can never outgrow your own self-image. And this was something that I really had to overcome. I was always really critical of myself. And it took me a while to appreciate that the way I was being received was so much different than the way I felt inside. I never viewed myself as like an attractive person or things like this. I had a really, really low self-image, and it would only kind of come out this is when I was young. Then when I was with like a small group that I trusted, that's where I would blossom more and express myself. And I didn't realize that was something I grew more and grew more and grew more and appreciated myself, appreciated my value. And I remember I was asked to speak at this event. This was maybe 3 years ago, a personal development event. And it was in LA, maybe there was 1,500 people. And I shared my story. And afterwards, I remember in my head just thinking like, man, I botched that. like the view that I had of doing something new was just that it was like terrible. And and this was my first time speaking in this role on this kind of scale. And then it was so interesting because afterwards people would say like, Sean, you crushed it, you did so good, like people in the audience. And I was like, oh, they're just saying that, they're just trying to be nice. There was even someone who came up and said, Sean, I've been to this event like some ridiculous number of times, like 20 times maybe, and you're just so connected to your emotions. This was the most powerful one, like most powerful speaker in this situation that I've ever seen. And even then, I still wasn't willing to I still wasn't able to accept it. Like I just felt so critical of myself. And not until like afterwards and then more feedback and then really like it was processed for me to understand that I did a good job despite all the evidence, despite that. Like they've invited me to speak multiple times since then. Like objectively, it is obvious I did a good job, but it was so hard for me to accept that. And it wasn't based on what I did. It wasn't based on the results. It was based on just the image that I've had of myself. And although I had done a bunch of work on that, when I kind of pushed it to that new level, pushed that envelope a bit and stood in a new place. Hey, Storm. Storm wants to join. Whoop, wrong way. Here. Better. So it wasn't until to put in that situation that was more extreme that I had the opportunity to go deeper in my own self-image. And especially if you're an energy healer and in the coaching space and you're building a business, being able to stand in your value and convey that is so, so important. And I was already doing that then, and I had been able to convey that value. But the thing that I've noticed with all of these, as Storm chimes in a little bit, hey bud, it's okay, is that these pieces of ourself that we may have felt that we've healed, or we're like, oh, I healed that childhood wound, I healed this relationship with my parents, whatever it is, right? Those are the typical ones. That we can always go deeper. There's another level that we can go. And this is why that consistency, this is why when you have that desire inside and you follow it, these are the gifts on the other side that we talk about. So, how do you do it? How do you improve your self-image? There's an exercise in here. There's a business card in here. There's also an exercise in here called the theater of the mind. And it's this meditation. You do a meditation and you just look back and you focus on all the successes that you had. And you prime your mind in this way. Because all too often we get caught up on the mistakes. Or, I mean, that's what I did in this situation on stage, is this small mistake that I think actually worked in the favor of the presentation. That's what I hyper focused on and painted the whole situation black of like, oh no, I ruined everything. As opposed to like seeing the truth. And that's what most of us are doing, especially if you're into manifestation, especially if you're a coach and an energy healer. We tend to be less on the ego side and more on the heart side, and could use a little bit more ego sometimes, could use a little bit more of a reflection of truth, of how beautiful we are, of how amazing we are, of what our value is and what we can deliver. Because it's so easy to normalize these things that we do, these parts of our life that are other people's dreams. So he talks about this theater of the mind meditation where you just go back and you see your successes and you feel them and you embody them and you prime yourself in this way to start to uplift your image of yourself, to start to see yourself more honestly, to start to see yourself as the beautiful, radiant being that you are. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share today, the power of that, and how sometimes that can be a glass ceiling for us that we bump into. So thank you so much. I hope Storm contributing to the conversation sounded okay on the mic. And yeah, if you've made it this far and you like this content, subscribing really helps the channel, especially at this stage, and allows you to see more and more and more of this that I'm committed to continuing. So take care.